Hi, so my name is Ali Russell and I'm a newborn photographer here in Coffs Harbour, New South Wales, Australia. And it is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month for the month of October. And what I wanted to share was a little bit about my personal journey and why this month sits so close to home for us. So I've got two children, Luke who's 13 and Benjamin who's 5.5. And in June we found out, my partner and I, that we were pregnant. And after a really hard year, it gave us something to look forward to, and was something that we wanted. It happened a little sooner than we thought, but it's certainly something that both of us really wanted, and the boys were really excited about. And so on Saturday, September 8th, I went in for just my hospital booking appointment, and during that week I'd felt something wasn't quite right, and I hadn't felt a lot of movement. I was 18 weeks 4 days at that point, or 18 weeks and 3 days, I think. And so after all the booking questionnaire, they take forever, I'd asked the nurses if they could Doppler me, and they were more than happy to do it. I was in there with a student midwife, and so she had a go. So the fact that she couldn't find the heartbeat straight away was not a concern. Two more midwives had a go. They couldn't find them, but as you know, babies can sit quite funny, and sometimes the heartbeat's hard to find depending how the baby's laying. So even at that point, I really wasn't even that worried. I was probably, maybe in the back of my mind I was concerned, but they called the girls, the midwives had a go at the ultrasound machine, which they, declared they're terrible at because it's not something they normally do. So when they couldn't detect anything, I wasn't concerned because I knew they weren't trained to really use the machines. They called the obstetrician who was on call at the time, called her down, and she had a go. She brought her own mobile ultrasound, and she had a go, and she was finding it hard, but she was also saying baby was laying funny. And at the time, I thought, he's facing the spine again, which is what he did at the last scan. We didn't know what it was at that point. So she didn't let on to anything. She got me straight round to radiology, as they'd call the sonographers in. It was a weekend, so I live in a regional town, so they're not always here on a weekend. And within 30 seconds of her putting it on my tummy, she apologised and said there was no heartbeat. And everything came crashing down. And all I could think about was my partner and how much this was going to devastate him. I think as a mum, you kind of get used to things not going right, or, just the daily challenges that, mums deal with. And so I wasn't thinking about me, I was thinking about him. And so I texted him, and he was at work, he's a chef, and I messaged him and said, you need to come to the hospital straight away. And then he rang and I told him, and I could just hear it in his voice, but he came straight up, and we were at the hospital for a couple of hours. I'd requested a D&C to be done, but Bub was too big, and the hospital policy is not to do a D&C over 16 weeks. That's just their policy. So I met with the obstetricians and the nurses, and they had us in delivery suite just while we worked out a plan of attack, and they were consulting with one of the head obstetricians, and basically they were hoping that I would start on my own over the next couple of days. If not, I would be induced on the Monday. And for me, I've had 2 Caesars. So uterine rupture was a big fear for me, because I thought if something happens to my uterus, then I can't ever give that baby to Andrew. Anyway, we went in on the Monday and we got there at 7, and our midwife, Beck, was amazing. And Dr. Sue and Dr. Viv looked after me, and they were fantastic. I can't fault anyone at Coffs Harbour Hospital. They induced me with misoprostol and gel in my cervix at about 10 a.m. and I had to stay on my back for about an hour to an hour and a half. And about 11:30, I started to feel just more like discomfort, more like a period discomfort. And I asked to go for a walk because I knew that being on my back during labour was not going to help the process. And it did concern me because with my eldest, he was an emergency caesarean, so I never dilated past 5 centimetres, so that was always in the back of my head that I wasn't going to get there. And so about 1:30 I started contracting. They were fairly regular. They started off, first 2 were like 10 minutes apart, and then 6 minutes for the next 2 contractions, and then they went to 3 minutes apart. I was told this process could take 2 to 3 days, so I really didn't want that. When you're told you've got a baby that's died inside of you, you want it out. I started getting heavier contractions about 4:30, and I jumped in the shower and I had really, really hot water on my back until I couldn't get the water any hotter, which tends to be when you're in there a long time. So I think I was in there about half an hour, 40 minutes having a shower. And then I got out the shower and it was decided I would have morphine shot. Morphine doesn't really do anything for me. It's a redhead thing. We're a bit strange with medications. And it gave me, so the plan was they give me the morphine shot. I tried to have a sleep while my body did what it needed to do. And, that was the plan. So at 5:30, my partner went home just to get a few things and grab some dinner for him. And in that time, I probably got, the morphine only gave me about half an hour relief. It didn't stop any of the pain. It slowed my contractions just for half an hour. And then they came on very, very strong. They were lasting about a minute and a minute apart, and a minute apart. So my body was very tired, and I was in a lot of pain. And I had felt contractions before because I did labour for a long time with my eldest, but I had no indication of when we would be close to delivery, or if I was dilating, or if my body was doing everything it needed to do. And so in that time, and I'm kind of really grateful that no one was there, I was very angry. And I just kept thinking, there's no reward at the end of this. There's no baby. There's no baby to bring home. And I knew I was going to say I wasn't going to cry, but of course I was going to cry. So I was very angry, and I was angry at my body and really hoping that, you better be doing what you need to get this baby out, and thinking if I've got another day or 2 of this, I'm not going to be able to handle it. And I was hooked up to drips because I had a uterine infection. My temperature was spiking, so they were starting IV antibiotics. And, sorry. And I couldn't reach a button. I couldn't tell them that I was in so much pain or that my pain had heightened. I couldn't reach a button. There wasn't actually a button on this particular bed. It was further away and I was attached to her. So I just kind of cried through my contractions, moaned and then cried and moaned and cried. And then Dr. Sue came in and she came just to check on me and she said, oh, you're in a lot of pain. Let's try and organise the anaesthetist for a fentanyl button. So they were in the process of organising that, and then Andrew came back, and by that stage I was feeling very hot and feeling a bit nauseous, and I didn't know what that means because I've never delivered a baby. And I had been asking them to examine me because I know I needed to know if I was dilating. I just needed to know for me that I was heading in the right direction. And of course, because they'd been putting it off, I'd had a second misoprostol tablet that I took orally at 2 p.m. And they'd been putting it off because I had an infection. Of course, they don't want to put anything foreign in your body that can increase that infection risk. So at about probably 7:15, 7 o'clock, they examined me. And I'd been in fairly heavy labour for about an hour and a half at this point. And the midwife examined me and said, the head's there and you're fully dilated. And I remember crying, thinking, my body's done what it needed to do. And then she asked me when I felt the urge to start pushing. I don't know if it's different because I had a baby that wasn't alive, but I didn't get those urges to push. So we just decided to go with the contractions. And I didn't know how to push, so I had to kind of have a few practice runs. And on the third lot of pushes, so within about 5 to 10 minutes, my water's broken. I pushed our baby out. And there was this huge sense of accomplishment. I'd always wanted to be able to have a VBAC this time, so a vaginal delivery. And I got it safely without any risk to my uterus. And I felt very relieved. Andrew was at a very sad point. We were at very different levels of grief. So I was at this stage where I was relieved and proud of myself for being able to do it. And the whole day had been very clinical for me, other than that heavy labour stage where I was quite angry. It had just been get the baby out. That was my goal. So on that night, nothing really hit me. I was sad. I knew Bub had gone. I'd been processing that for a couple of days since we found out. And I knew that his soul went, left his body when his heart stopped beating. So I knew for me that was his physical vessel. It was his body, but he wasn't there and his body wasn't there. And his body was there, but not his soul. And that's my personal belief. When you die, is that, when your soul leaves your body and goes to heaven. And I truly believe that all those innocent babies and children do go to heaven. They've never had any other experiences to change that, and I believe God looks after them. So the last month since this has all happened, it's been very up and down for me. I'm a newborn photographer, so I deal with very new babies on a regular basis. And my first session was 4 days after I delivered. So I delivered him on Monday night at 7:34 p.m. I had to stay in hospital to have the heavy IV antibiotics for an extra day. So we were discharged about 7 o'clock on the Tuesday night. And I had my first session again on Friday. A lot of people warned against me doing that and said it would be too hard. My mindset was, I need to be able to do this. This is my livelihood. This is my income. And I knew in my heart that my sadness was separate to their joy, and that, you know, I could separate the two. So on the Friday morning, to get to the studio early, to prep my studio ready for the session, I walked in, and one picture that has always been kind of taped on those 3M tape things, had always been straight for the last 2 years, had shifted and was completely crooked. And I thought that was quite interesting, that something was different where it never had been before. But as I walked in my studio with images of all these other babies, it didn't affect me at all because they weren't my baby. And I was very grateful that was easy. I sat down to try and edit one image before my clients came to see how I would react. And same thing, it wasn't my baby. So it was quite easy. So I was really grateful for that. That, you know, my work life, which I love photographing newborns. It's just a really precious time and a very small window of time where that baby is just so little, that I'm really grateful that it didn't affect me. I have my moments. This isn't my first loss. I have had 3 miscarriages prior to Hudson, and they've affected me in different ways. They've been in different relationships. So they've been, I've been emotionally a different stage of my life, different age, different, you know, so they've affected me differently, basically. My last loss before Hudson was 6 months before I fell pregnant with my youngest. And I have quite a large age gap between my eldest and my youngest, and my ex-husband didn't want any more children. So when he said we could, and I fell pregnant straight away after waiting 6 years, that hit very hard when I lost that baby. The 2 beforehand, one, I didn't actually know I was pregnant, so it didn't affect me as much. The one before that did a little bit, but not, you know, I moved on fairly quickly after that. And the thing is, everyone deals with grief differently. Everyone deals with grief at different stages differently, and that's okay. And the main reason I'm doing this video is to just create a little bit more awareness about miscarriage and infant loss, and it's more common than most people realise. It's, you know, 1 in 3 first pregnancies end in a miscarriage. I think part of you, when you first fall pregnant, thinks this could happen, and then there's lots of people who don't know this information. So, you know, particularly for any wanted pregnancy, it hurts, and it hurts for some people when they lose a baby at 5 weeks or 9 weeks or 11 weeks or any of those stages. It affects people differently. One of the hardest things for me has been, comments have been made that, not that I was cold, I felt I've been cold at times, but that I'm not processing. And I am processing, but I'm at a very high level awareness of my mental health and how I feel. I'm very good at processing my emotions. I know how I feel. I actually have bipolar 2. And so particularly over the last few years, I'm very self-aware with how to process my emotions. And every day I wish my baby was still growing inside of me. I would be nearly 23 weeks now. I would be feeling those kicks. Andrew would be feeling those kicks. My kids would probably be able to feel those kicks. We would be nearing, over the halfway mark of bringing our baby home in February. So I do process it different. I quite often cry at night when I'm laying in bed and I can't feel anything there anymore. And that baby's not there and I can't feel that hard lump in my uterus or that movement. I'm not affected by other people's joy. I'm very grateful for that, because I know it could really stand me still in my tracks. And knowing that it could hold me back from moving on. And I'm glad I'm not, because I could walk through Kmart and walk past the baby section and people pushing babies in prams, and it doesn't upset me, because I am happy for those around me who have that joy. And I'm happy that, they've got these little bundles that are going to change their life forever, because I know what that's like. I'm lucky enough, yes, I'm blessed. I have 2 beautiful boys who mean the world to me. So I'm glad I can separate that. My grief is my grief. My grief is, Andrew's grief is his grief, and together we grieve together. And it's very hard for dads too. Men particularly are not known to be in touch with their emotions, and they find it very hard, probably similar to kids, how to process how they feel. Sometimes it comes out as anger. That's something that a lot of emotions can come out as. So we need to support our dads as well, because they're feeling it, but dads have this, I'm the provider, I must keep moving on. My partner is in touch with how he feels, but it's very hard for him to open up to me. But I know when he's having a bad day and where he might be feeling really sad, and I know why he's feeling sad. And, it can be scary, because I know for my partner there's been not very healthy thoughts earlier on, but he's in a good place now. And we've just got to work together. And that's the thing, is that a lot of people go, oh wow, you've had a miscarriage, that's really sad. And kind of expect you to just move on really quickly. And for me, I'm able to get on with my daily life. And I just have my moments in the shower, or when I'm, going to sleep, or sometimes it will just hit me when I'm just feeling sad today, and I'll have a cry. And that's really important for those of you who are going through this, is that you need to feel it. You can't heal it unless you feel it. So it's okay to cry, but life does go on. And I know for me that, my kids still need me. Andrew still needs me. My job's, is still required to be done. I can't stop. In a perfect world, if I was financially independent, I could take, a couple of months off and fall in a heap, but I can't. So, we do remember Hudson every day. I think about him multiple times a day. It's not something I think you will ever forget. I'll never forget that experience, but I'll never forget that I got to give birth to his body either. But I know that he's in a safe and healthy place. Something had to be wrong with him for his little heart to stop. And you second guess everything you do, or what you did, or what you could have done, and that's just torture. We all think it, we all worry about it, but don't dwell on it. It sadly isn't going to change the outcome. We still don't have babies to bring home. we still don't have babies to cuddle and comfort, and we never get to hear them cry. But at the same time, it's important to feel what you're feeling, but it's important for others around you to be supportive. And most of my family's away from here, 4+ hours away. And pick up the phone and talk to them, or pick up the phone and just see how they are and just listen. You don't have to say anything. If you don't know what to say, then don't say anything. Just listen. Sometimes that's all we need, is just to talk about it. And talking about it helps process it, and it helps heal it. And other than the fact I'm doing this video, sometimes I can talk about it and not cry. Sometimes I talk about it and get teary or choked up. It changes depending on the day. But it's just more about people recognizing that, it's like any death. There's a sadness there, and there's a hole. And there's a hole where that baby would have filled. And people are hurting. So just show some love and some support. Yes, we get past it. We do get past it, and we will get past it. I'm not past it yet. I won't be past it for a while. But just be patient and understanding that you may have had a loss and it didn't affect you. And it may be hard to understand why someone months on, or, years on, it still affects, because we're all different and we all grieve differently, and we're all at different stages to be able to handle different types of grief. And one of my girlfriends who I had a coffee with this morning said to me, yes, but you're only given what you can handle. And so for some people, that may mean that this grief is carried longer and it's harder to process. And having a first trimester miscarriage, may be the hardest form of grief that person's ever had to face. And, I know that for me, if this had happened 6 months ago, it could have destroyed me. I was in a much darker place. But I look at it now and I go, I've been through so much in the last 15 months that I am strong and I can get through it. And so can you. You can get through it, and we can move on. And we can just hope and pray for our little rainbow babies. So just share the love and be understanding for those around you who have lost. This isn't about me. This is not about me. I'm in a good place with my grief. This is more for many women, and I'm in Facebook groups for women who are in the same situation as me. People who've gotten the whole way through their pregnancies to find their baby hasn't got a heartbeat, or they've lost their baby during delivery, or their baby just hasn't survived very long after they've delivered. And I don't compare my grief to those parents. I know how hard it is to almost get halfway and go through this, but I can't even fathom what it's like to get that far and go through the same thing. It would be totally different. Just like I do understand for those people who have early miscarriages, I know how some of them can rock you to your core. And everyone processes grief differently, and we've just got to show each other some love and some support, and that's really what it comes down to. It's a very taboo subject, and people don't know how to deal with it, and it makes them uncomfortable. And I know that people feel for you, but they don't know how to deal with it, and that's okay. And we understand that, but just ask, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? And all you have to do is listen. So I'm leaving this here, but I just want to say my heart is with all of you who have gone through a loss or losses. As a mum who has 4 angel babies in heaven, just have that peace, whether you believe or not, that your baby is in a safe and happy place. You know, and my heart is with you because I know how hard it is. So let's all help break this stigma and break the silence on miscarriage and infant loss. And for those who aren't going through it, help break it by being that support to someone who is going through it. Thank you. Thanks for listening.